Hello everyone, how's it going? Dr. Incompetent here, and let's do a complete beginner's guide to Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup, shall we? Now, I've actually done several guides on this game over the years, and I'm going to put in the description below links to a Minotaur Berserker, a ranged character, and a spellcaster, so you can see some kind of like basic types of characters, but those plays, which two of them are complete 3 rune victories, all the way from beginning to end, are on previous versions of the game. And I wanted to do a more up to date guide so you could kind of, if you wanted to jump in now, have something that worked with the changes of this game. Now, one of the great things about the game is that it changes, but also you can go back and play previous versions if you liked a particular rule set better, as things certainly evolve over time. So we're going to be playing version 0.33, which is the latest version out here in 2025. And I'm going to be playing Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup online. I'll put a link in the description below. This game is free to play. You can play it online, or you can download the client and play it offline, but I prefer playing online so that you can log in anywhere and it keeps track of your score and you can see how you do against other players. So we're going to play online, and you get to this screen, then you just click play online now. You're going to need to create a free account, and then you can log in to any one of the servers. Just pick the server that's closest to you. So once you've got your account created and your server selected, you come to this screen here, and you're going to see it's going to say hello and your account name. It says Dr. Incompetent, and you're going to see some options here of what you can play. Now, you can play the trunk, or you can play the latest version. The trunk is the version that is kind of getting tinkered with in between versions where they're trying things out. We're going to be playing the Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup 0.33, the latest version that is stable and is not getting any changes. Now, before we jump into this, I'm going to click here where it says Edit RC. This is editing the config, and I'm going to put this up on the screen. This is the config file that the modifications that I always make, and I'm not even sure how many of these actually still work, because they changed the game, and some of these may not work as they used to, or you might not even, some of them might be obsolete at this point because the game already does this for you. But here's what I do. So I'm setting this so that it stops auto fight at 80% of your health. So you'll see it says auto fight underscore stop equals 80. And the default is 50%, but I find that to be not enough of a warning to stop auto fight. So I put it to 80% so I can still control the outcome and escape or do something different if I need to in a fight. I also have explore underscore auto underscore rest set to true, so equals true. What this means is if I push auto explore, which is the O key, instead of just going into auto explore, I will rest before I do that so that I'm at full health before I auto explore, because I don't want to just accidentally push that, then run into the path of an enemy and not be at full health. I also set the explore underscore delay to 20, so I put equals 20. What this does, if you don't have this set, when you auto explore, the game will almost, not even almost, it just instantly teleports you to the next location, and it can be disorienting to watch. Now, if this is not enough of a delay, you can increase this to move a little bit slower and watch your character move around. And then I also have show underscore more equals false. This just prevents you from having to push enter many, many times through certain messages that the game presents you with. So if you just type this in or copy and paste this, I might just put this into the comments or the description just so you can copy and paste it if you want, and you can click save. Now, you don't have to use any of these things. These are just kind of quality of life features that I enable to make my experience smoother. Once you're done with that, you can click right here on the latest version, not on the trunk, right below it, 0.33 latest version, And you will come to the loading screen, and here you go. So now we get to choose our species, and there's simple, intermediate, and advanced. So this is a guide for complete beginners, and I'm going to be choosing something that I think we can be successful with that I haven't done a guide on yet. So like I said, I have a guide with a Minotaur, with a Gargoyle, and I believe maybe we played as a Spriggan for another one of them. And so, you know, they do recommend these simpler backgrounds or species to start with, although I'm going to tell you what, that some of these are actually, even if they're advanced, I found the Poltergeist to be pretty easy once I got into it, and we just got a victory. I'm going to link that. It was my most recent play. It was my only play in 0.33, and we were able to get a 3-rune victory with a Poltergeist. So I do love a troll, and that's a very tempting start. But I think I'll just go with something newer and something simple, which is the Mountain Dwarf. So the Mountain Dwarf is a melee fighter that's capable and heavy armored, and it can actually even enchant artifacts. This was a species that they took out of the game. It used to be the easiest species to win with. It was, in fact, my first win in the game many, many years ago. And then they took it out and they completely reworked it. And what you want to do whenever you choose a species is just take a look at what your options are, and then you'll see down at the bottom of this box, there are some choices here where you can randomize, pick a recommended species, which means a better species, or you can just have a recommended character, which means a good combination of backgrounded species. But also what you can do, which is what I think is really interesting, is you can push the % key to list aptitudes, and this brings up the table of aptitudes so that you can see how good your species is at gaining experience in certain skills. So if we go to the Mountain Dwarf, for example, you could see right here that the Mountain Dwarf, let me just see if I can get it on. Here we go. Yeah, this is perfect. The Mountain Dwarf is good at armor, not good at dodging, -3, not good at stealth, but is good with a shield, and not good at shape-changing at all, good at invocations, very good actually, pretty good at evocations, not good at throwing, gets 10% more hit points than average on level, is neutral on magic points per level, does take more experience to level up, -1 on experience, meaning they are a little bit slower to gain experience than somebody with a 0. They're good at a will save, +4, and then you go down to the next page, and you can see that the Mountain Dwarf is great in combat. So +1 fighting, which determines it's a skill you can train for hit points, and a little bit of accuracy. +2 to maces and flails, +2 to axes, +1 to staves. Not good at unarmed, not good with short blades, not really good with long blades and ranged weapons. So then we can look at the spellcasting aptitudes, and unfortunately the Mountain Dwarf isn't great at many of the schools, but is okay with some of them. So the Mountain Dwarf is actually somehow, like, for example, okay with fire magic and okay with earth magic and necromancy. So we can use this to kind of shape our character. And what I want you to do when you're looking at this is say, okay, well, what kind of character do I want to play? And a Mountain Dwarf, based on those aptitudes, is very much, I'm going to get armor and weapons, and I'm going to fight mostly in melee. Like, I'm going to be kind of a hardy fighter type character. I do have a little bit of hybridity where I could, maybe cast some fire magic if I wanted to, but it's going to be unlikely that we can do anything great because we're probably going to be wearing heavier armor, which will limit our spell casting. So I'm going to push escape, go back, and we'll choose Mountain Dwarf. Now from here, we go to the backgrounds, and these are like the classes that you can start with. But one of the things you need to know about Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup is that even if you start with a particular background, you might pivot or change a bit based on, what equipment you find or what spells you find, and what you need to do to win. You can't very easily pivot like completely in the other direction, but you certainly can, change your mind a bit. And what this tells you here is which backgrounds the game recommends based on our species. So I'm telling you that you can, pivot a little bit from your starting choice, but as a beginner, I really think you should pick something and kind of just do your best to stick to that identity until you understand more about the game. Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup is so much like you just play and you die, and you play again and you die, and you learn about the game, and the more you know, you can use that knowledge to your advantage, and you learn all these little tricks and things that you can do that give you small advantages and allow you to make decisions that you just would not even see as a new player. And that's just how it is. So I think it's easier to just, stick right with something from the beginning. Now, if you're not familiar all the way up, to this point of the video, what Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup is. Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup is a classic roguelike, meaning this is a turn-based game where we take a turn, the enemy takes a turn, and we're going to be exploring procedurally created dungeons, looking for equipment, items, leveling up, fighting just waves and waves of enemies, and trying to get strong enough to win the game, which we can do by collecting 3 runes, going through the depths and Zot's realm, picking up the Orb of Zot, and then escaping from the dungeon alive with the orb. That is how you can win. Now, you can go for extended runs, which are, much more challenging, where you try to get more runes. And I have a bunch of runs throughout the years where I've gotten 15 runes, and I'll put links to all of my different characters that I've played in the description if you want to see some long complete runs. So now when we're looking at what backgrounds we can choose, we have warrior type, we have zealot types. Zealot types are like you start already with a god. And that is a big deal in Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup because your god is, almost like the third choice here. You have species, background, and then the god that you choose. You can switch gods, but that can come with some severe penalties and wrath from the god you switch away from. But it's a whole other kind of path that you put your character on towards strengthening it. And starting out already with a god is a great advantage because you do not start with a god otherwise. Now, a berserker is a lot of fun, but I already did a guide on a berserker. Cinder Acolyte, I feel like, is not something that's great for a beginner. Reaver is interesting, but again, perhaps not beginner friendly. Now, if you wanted to just go spellcaster, you could do that. A mountain dwarf, you don't have to go tank, like a hardy fighter. You could use those hit points that the mountain dwarf gets and the ability to wear some armor and kind of be more of a healthy caster if you wanted. But what we're going to do is we're just going to play as a fighter. I think it's a great way to start as a new player because fighters have less to think about than spellcasters, and they generally provide more opportunity for overcoming mistakes because they have hit points and armor that can mitigate things. Whereas if you're a caster, sometimes you're wearing a robe and you get one shot. Now, once you get good with the caster, and that fits your playstyle, it might be easier. But we're just going to go ahead and dive into a fighter. So once you pick your species and your background, now we know we're a mountain dwarf fighter, and the game is saying, okay, well, what weapon do you want to start with? And it does tell you right here. Remember, we aren't good with long or short blades, so we have bad aptitudes there, but we're good with flails, and we're good with axes. So we're going to go with a flail. Axes are beautiful. They're fantastic. They do a ton of damage, and they have a really cool ability, which means that they cleave on attack. So when you are standing on a tile, you actually hit, like if, let's say I'm standing in one tile and then I attack to the right, I actually attack the squares that are to the right and then the squares above and below that with my cleave. So kind of the square to, let's just use directions and say to the east, northeast, and southeast, I would hit with my flail. Now, or my axe rather, with the cleave ability. It doesn't do full damage to all of those targets, but it's nice that it does, I think, 70% damage to the other targets, something to that effect, unless they've recalibrated it. But I'm going to go with a flail, and I like flails. They don't have that, ability to hit multiple targets, but what they do have are some great brands, and also using a flail allows us to kill a hydra very easily, whereas an axe against a hydra is a terrible idea. That being said, remember what I mentioned about pivoting. I could very well start with a flail, but as you train the flail skill, axes are actually a skill that synergizes with flails and gains a little bit of a kind of some experience. So I can switch to an axe if I want and be pretty skilled with an axe. Not quite as skilled as I am with the flail, but a little bit skilled. And then if I use an axe for a while, I'm also training flails, albeit not as much. So we're going to go with a flail, and here we are. So we pop into the world, and you can see our screen. This is the online client, and I've zoomed in a little bit so you can see it better. In the upper left, you're going to see my consumables. So I can click the cauldron to see the main menu, and I can also drink these potions of might. I have 2 of them. The text is incredibly small. In the upper left, it does tell you how many, but if you mouse over it, it shows you 2 potions of might. Now, you can left-click to drink it, or you can right-click to describe it. And then in the center, you're going to see the map, and I'm in this kind of stone room here with a door to the east, and this is all I can see. I am standing on the doorway out. Now, if I want to just leave the game and lose, I can walk out the steps without anything, and the game is over. But this is actually where we will have to return if we get all the 3 runes and get the orb and we're running out. This is where we will return many, many hours from now to try to escape with our lives if we are so fortunate. Now, in the upper right, you're going to see some information about my character. There's my name. Shield Bearer is the kind of suffix that I get, and that title is determined based on the highest trained skill that you have. Underneath that, you're going to see my species, Mountain Dwarf. There's my health, 19 hit points out of 19, the green bar, and I have 1 magic point, the blue bar. My armor class is 6, which affects enemies being able to hit me, but it also affects the amount of damage that I mitigate from physical attacks. Evasion is just straight up, I can dodge the attack if I roll successfully against their attack. And then shields are my ability to just outright block an incoming attack. If you block with a shield, it blocks 100% of the damage. I'm at experience level 1, and I am 0% of the way to the next level. I am making no noise. That bar is not filled in because I'm not doing anything. I'm not moving. I have a flail equipped, and my strength is 18, my intelligence is 8, my dexterity is 9. I'm on the first floor of the dungeon, and time is kind of like, it keeps track of how many turns have passed, and it's more of a scorekeeping thing than anything. You don't have to really worry about that too much. And then on the right side of the screen, in the green box, you're going to see the mini-map. And down in the bottom left, you're going to see the combat log and just the game log in general. It says, "Welcome, Dr. Incompetent, the Mountain Dwarf fighter. They say the Orb of Zot lies within this dungeon, but they say a lot of things. Be careful. Halloween tonight." Oh, yeah, I'm playing on Halloween. That's cool. And there is an incredibly important and overlooked thing right here, which it says press question mark for a list of commands and other information. And if I push question mark, you open up the help menu. In these windows, you will actually be able to find answers to pretty much everything of the game. Sometimes you need to go to the wiki to see some things, but this is very, very helpful. And there's a tutorial that you can get to on the main login. Instead of going to 0.33 on the left, you can go all the way to the right and do a tutorial. But if you push Shift 6, you can actually get to the Quick Start Guide, which gives you some really useful advice. And then you can also push question mark again to see the key bindings. And this is incredibly helpful as well. We'll talk about a lot of this, but very, very useful. And it does say we're standing on a staircase leading out of the dungeon. So in order to play Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup, you can click left with the mouse to walk around. You can also kind of click far away, and then your character will auto move to that spot. And then you see these little footprints to illustrate the squares that I walk through to get here. Now, I do not ever, I don't want to say ever, but 99.9% of the time, I do not move that way. I actually move with the numpad, and I walk around turn by turn like this. So you could see me on the screen there. I've got a flail, and I've got my little shield. And in fact, if you want to know what I have, you can push I to open up the inventory. And you can see I have a +0 flail as my weapon. I am wearing scale mail, and I have a small shield, which is a buckler. I also have 2 potions of might. Now, what's really useful, and one of the nice things about the online client that they've continued to add, is I can actually click on this flail and get a description of it. And this description is not just flavor like it used to be. It tells you, here's a little bit of a description of just what a flail is. And then there's always a nice little quote with stuff in this game. But this is why you want to look at this. It explains to you everything about how the weapon's attacks are calculated. It tells you its base damage and its base attack delay and its base accuracy. This is really important for understanding how strong a weapon is just at its base. So the lower the delay, the faster it goes. 1.0 is 1 turn. So like we move 1.0, it takes 1.0 turns to move, and we're a little bit slower than that attacking with this weapon. The base damage is incredibly important, and the higher the base damage, usually the better the weapon, unless there's a bunch of great bonuses on it. And then base accuracy is +0. But then below this, it's explaining to you a bunch of information about, like, okay, well, if you decided, hey, I'm going to train Flails all the way up to level 14 skill level, then I can get that base attack delay from 1.4 all the way down to 0.7. And you can see how I'm doing with this particular weapon, and it says how long it's going to take me to reach that maximum level and what my current attack delay is. So it's actually 1.3 already because of my skill level. And then it tells you the damage rating. So it's explaining to you how this damage rating is calculated. And usually, the higher the damage rating, the better for weapons, unless there's other properties that would cause you to want to use something else. But it says, all right, it's got base damage 10, and then you multiply that by 120% of my strength times 109%, which is determined by my skill. So the higher skill I have, the higher strength I have, the more damage rating I will have. And that does not include any enchantments or anything that are on this, because it's +0. So that's a lot of great information. This can be enchanted all the way to +9. And you can similarly see, information about your armor and how your armor affects the enemy's ability to damage you, but it also talks about encumbrance. And encumbrance is reducing things like your ability to cast spells effectively, also things like evasion. So the heavier and more encumbering your armor, the harder it will be to cast spells and do things like be stealthy or evade. And then shields, similarly, explain to you, okay, they have an encumbrance rating, how many times I can block per turn, what the shield rating is, etc. And we'll talk more about this as we get equipment that we want to compare it to, but that's just our starting equipment. You can also push Shift 5 to bring up this screen, which I like a lot, and it's kind of like an overview of your character, and it just shows you at a glance what you have equipped in every single slot. So we have no helmet, no cloak, no gloves, no boots, no amulet, and we don't have any rings. And it tells you how many hit points you're regenerating, tells you all of your resistances to fire, cold, negative energy, poison, electricity, corrosion, if we can see invisible, our will save, our stealth ability, if we have any special effects or abilities, how much experience we have, how much piety we have, etc. So now let's just walk around a little bit, shall we? I want to just walk through this door. How do you walk through the door? Well, you can simply push the direction toward the door and you will open it. You can push Shift C to close it, and you can push Shift O to open it. Opening doors, as you can see in the log in the bottom left, it creaks. It's making noise. So I do, sort of want to be mindful of that, but, I don't need to worry too much on the first floor about making noise. It's just important to be aware of what does make noise, because that can alert enemies. So now you can see there's several different hallways that I can explore. There's some money down there. The green box outlining the object means that I can pick that up and I can go get some money. So you see right now, beep, I don't have any money, but now I do. How do I know how much money I have? Push Shift 4 and it tells you in the bottom left you have 15 gold pieces. You can also see on Shift 5 my gold right there. So I got a little bit of money. Money is used primarily to buy things from shops when you find them. Or if you are worshipping Gozag, there are some other applications, but that's basically it. Okay, so what did I just do? How did I just move like that? You see all those little yellow footsteps and how my character just flew across the screen? That is because I auto-explored. Auto-explore is, once you get comfortable, it's the primary way I move around in this game when there are no enemies visible. So auto-explore is basically saying, all right, I just want to kind of like map this out and see what's available. And I'm going to do that without manually telling my character to walk. And what auto-explore does is it will just walk around and try to uncover the map. And it has its own little algorithm to govern where it moves. But the important thing about auto-explore is that it will stop whenever it sees an enemy, or if there's other triggers, dangerous things, or as of right now, where we just landed on an item and picked it up. So there's all these different things that will help you avoid getting into trouble with auto-explore. And it's honestly very, very safe, because you can walk into an enemy accidentally, even if you're manually controlling. There is an argument to be made that if you manually control, you can minimize the dangerous moments for encountering an enemy, and absolutely, that is true. It is not the safest way to travel. It's also not the most efficient way to travel. If you're trying to move really efficiently, you want to do manual control. And if you think that an area is dangerous and you don't want to just stumble upon an enemy in an inopportune strategic position, then you can manual control. But a lot of the time, I'm just going to auto-explore. And the reason I put the delay on is so that you can see me move around. It's faster than normal movement, but I can at least see, and the footsteps show us where we go. So I got a ring of ice. What is that? Well, I'm going to push I and open up our inventory. And you can see down there we have a ring of ice. So I can push E the key. So you see how there's all these letters? You can click on them, or you can just type the letter that corresponds with it, and then it opens this up. Now, this is a cool ring if you want to use ice magic, because it enhances your ice magic and it gives you cold resistance, but conversely, it causes vulnerability to heat. In general, I never wear anything like this because I do not want to make myself vulnerable to any element. If I push Shift 5, I have no resistances. If I put this on, I would get 1 pip of cold resistance, but I would become vulnerable to fire, which means I would take double damage from a fire spell, which is god awful. I don't want to just get killed by fire. So it's not worth the trade-off. If I had already a plus to fire resistance, then I could consider it if I really needed cold resistance for some reason, but I don't, so I'm not going to wear this ring. And I'm just going to push O and Auto Explorer, and you see I moved over here, and I found a blue potion, and you can see in the bottom left in the log, I found a blue potion. Now here's a tip. If you push Ctrl+P, you open up a giant log, and this isn't very big because I don't have a lot of the log shown yet because I haven't done a lot, but you could, if this gets massive, it will record the entire log, I believe, for the duration of time that you've been on the floor, as long as you don't save and quit or anything like that. What's great about this is you can scroll this up and down and you can see everything that happened. I use this all the time so that I'm sure, like, okay, wait, how much damage did I do? What happened? What's going on? And the game, it's turn-based. It's paused. Nothing's happening right now. I could take my time and I can read this. And I got a blue potion. It's in blue because it's unidentified. I don't know what it does. So here is another tip. I'm going to be throwing tips all over the place because this game is really hard. I haven't said that yet, but traditionally roguelikes are hard, and this is no different. This is a game about dying. Never feel embarrassed to die in this game. It happens to the best of us, and it happens a lot. I died continuously when I first started playing this game. It took me a year to get my first victory. That is how hard this game is. And even experienced players can have bad luck or make a mistake, and it's over. Here is what I want to say in that direction. Do not drink potions that you don't know what they are. It is not worth it. The only time I would ever tell you to do that is if you were about to die, and there is only one potion that can save you. Like if you're going to die of poison, and if you don't drink it, you're going to die anyway, then fine. Otherwise, do not drink unidentified potions because there are some really nasty negative potions that have no positive effects that will just hurt you, and you don't want to drink it. So just leave it there. Wait for an identify scroll. I'm going to just search around. Okay, I found a staircase. This staircase, you see how it's red and how it has a little asterisk in the upper right corner, the yellow asterisk there. This is a staircase of, and I'm going to tell you two things about it. Number one, you see in the log, you found an escape hatch. Escape hatches are one way. If I decide to go down to floor 2 using this staircase, I will not be able to come back up on that tile because it closes behind you. So you pretty much don't ever want to use these unless it's an emergency or you're trying to get to some area of the map that you couldn't otherwise. These are not something you want to mess with because you don't want to go down and then be stuck and have no escape plan. You're always, because this is a permadeath game. If we die, it is game over. There is no restarting. There is no trying again. There is no resurrecting. You're dead. Game's over. You got to start again. So you don't want to go down, not know what's below you, and have no exit strategy. You're always trying to keep an exit strategy open. So we're not going to use this staircase. We're not going to use this escape hatch. Now in the upper right, the asterisk means you haven't used this before. So this will be true for any staircase that we've never used. And so you can always at a glance see, wait, did I use this before? Now, let's take a look at the minimap. You're going to see there is a teal square and a magenta square. Magenta squares are staircases or hatches that go down, and teal squares are staircases that go up. The walls are light gray, the floor is gray, the doors are brown squares, and then the darker brown squares indicate where on the map I have not explored. So you could see on the minimap, well, I've found the edge of the map to the west and to the north for the most part, but northeast and to the east, there's those brown tiles, meaning like there's fog of war. We don't know what's over there. We need to go check it out, and we will. So we're ready with our Mountain Dwarf fighter to kind of go around Dungeon 1, exploring these unexplored areas, and we're going to get into a fight, and we're going to try to find some loot as well. So let's see if we can. I'm manually controlling right now because there is an unexplored area right here, and now there's gold, so I'll just push O to auto-explore, and how about that? So we just got some gold, as you can see in the log down in the bottom left. 11 pieces is what we gained. We have 26 total, but we just got a +5 ring of evasion. So you can see currently that our evasion is 8, and the higher this number, the better. It means we're harder to hit. So this is a perfect ring to actually wear. So I could push I, and I could push G, and then from this screen I can see what this does for us, and I can actually push P just to put it on, or I can push D to drop it. Adjusting and inscribing is not something we need to worry about at all right now, or really ever for a ring, but I'm just going to go ahead and put this on. So now you can see our evasion goes from 8 to 13. Now, if you want to put on a ring without opening your inventory, you can actually push Shift P to go to the put on screen for rings, and you can switch between your rings. Remember, we're not wearing that ring of ice because we don't want to become vulnerable to fire. All right, so you could see the map filling in there, and I'm going to push O to move around. You see how in the bottom left, it just said an endoplasm comes into view, it quivers, and then it moves out of view. So we stopped because we saw an enemy. Now the enemy gets to act when we stop, and it has moved out of view. So I'm going to just control manually, and then there it is right there. So this is, we're going to talk about a few things about fight strategy and inspection before we even get further, but there is an enemy up there. So you can actually push X to examine, and then right now I'm using the arrow keys to move around this yellow box, and you can then select different entities on the field, and if you want to know more about them, you can actually push the V key to examine them further, and then this gives us everything we need to know about the endoplasm. And there's some descriptive text, and then it tells you it has max hit points of around 6. And what that means is it has a random amount of hit points, but it's around 6. It has no will save to speak of. It has a little bit of armor class and a little bit of evasion. The more plus signs you see there, the more for armor class and evasion. It's a low threat level, which is really useful if you're a new player to just help understand, like, can I take this? Is this too dangerous for me? Everything on the first floor should be fairly straightforward, but it is good to see that. It's a neutral class. It's very small. It's mindless. And then it tells us we have about an 84% chance to hit it with our flail, and it only has a 36% chance to affect us, to hit us with its attack, thanks to our increased evasion. And its damage is going to do 3 at max, but it also has a freeze ability, which can hit us. And cold damage is rough, so it could do 1 dice 5. So these guys are actually on the harder end of enemies you're going to encounter just because of that cold damage. But if we can kill them before they get to do it, then we'll be okay. We could put on our Ring of Ice for this fight, like if we wanted some cold resistance, but I'll tell you, it does take a turn to change your equipment, so he'll get a free hit on us. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just pushing Escape to go out of the Examine. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually push the S key to wait a turn. So S is just like wait one turn, and you see how then the endoplasm moves toward me. This is how you want to fight. You don't want to walk toward the endoplasm or any enemy, because then they'll get a free hit on you. You generally want to just let them come to you so that you get the first swing, and now we do. And to attack, all you need to do is either push the tab key for auto attack or just walk into it. And I'm just going to walk into it, and boom, we killed it immediately. Now, Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup is not a game that's going to tell you how much damage you do. You can see it just says you sock the endoplasm, so there's different verbs to describe the damage based on the weapon you're using. And the number of exclamation points actually confers to you how much damage you've dealt. The more exclamation points, the better. We did enough to kill the endoplasm. It's dead. And you see we got a little bit of experience from killing it, and we're actually already 16% of the way to the next level. All right, so that was our first fight, and we took no damage. I'll take that. And now I'm going to move my mouse out of the way and just push O to auto-explore. All right, so there is a ring that we can see right here. And there is a couple of enemies, a kobold and a goblin. Now I can push X to examine. It's a brass ring. We actually don't know what it is until we step on it. And then there is a kobold. Now you'll see how if you inspect enemies that have equipment, it tells you what it is. So he's got a +0 short sword, and this goblin has a +0 club. So let's talk a little bit more about Combat 101 in Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup. I'm going to push Escape to cancel my examine. I want the enemy to come to me, but I don't want to wait on this tile, because if I do, then enemies could come here, here, and here, and all be hitting me. Instead, what you want to do so often in this game is find a choke point and then back into it. So I will just walk backward one, and then we can fight them one at a time right here. So I will push S to wait. The kobold comes towards me. I'm just going to walk into him, and it says I missed, it missed, and then I blocked its attack. So it's actually getting 2 attacks for my 1, because the blade that it's using, the short blade, is so much faster than my flail, which is slow. I swing again, we both missed, and then we're missing. He's hard to hit. So we're just going to stand here. It's no problem. It has actually hit us. We're missing again, and we're just kind of walking. We finally kill it. We thumped it. And then we killed this guy. So you can walk over it. And then this is a ring of magical power. A ring of magical power is nice. It's good because it gives you more magic points, but we don't have any spells. We're not casting spells, but we could, theoretically. So it's handy. I'm not even going to bother putting it on, though. Now, you see how this kobold right here has a question mark in the upper right corner? That means it doesn't know I'm here. So it's unaware of our presence. So we could try to like walk away, and if we don't make enough noise and it doesn't see us, then it wouldn't know about us. But we don't care if it knows about us. I'm actually going to walk toward it. And then instead of continuing to walk toward it, I'm going to pull it back into our little hidey hole and push S. Oh, it wants to throw stuff at me. Okay, fine. I'm going to walk back a little further, and then there we go. And we killed it. Oh, it has a +3 dagger. That's actually not bad. The other thing, though, is I want to pick up the stones that it's got, just so we can have something to throw. It's mildly useful. We're not very good at throwing, but we can throw stuff to do damage. So I'm going to push the G key, and this allows you to pick things up on the ground that the game automatically doesn't pick up. So there are certain things, potions, scrolls, that auto pick up. When you explore, will just run money. It'll just go pick it up for you. Sometimes it doesn't, and you can toggle that on and off. That's a more advanced control we can talk about later, or you can find it by pushing question mark. But I'm going to pick up the missiles, the stones, by pushing B, and that's the only thing I want to pick up. So you can toggle more of these things. You could pick up that dagger if you wanted, but I'm not going to use a dagger, so I'm okay with this. I just push Enter to accept. Now you'll see in the upper right for throwing, it automatically has quivered the stones so that I can push F to then throw the stones. And so you push F, and then you see in the bottom left it's saying Okay, what do you want to throw? Stones? And then you get to use the arrow keys to like say where you want to throw, select a tile, and then push enter to throw. I'm just going to push escape to stop doing that. So before we start moving around again, something I haven't yet talked about because there's so much to kind of unpack is our skill screen. So you see we're 41% of the way to the next level. We've killed a few enemies. I'm going to push the M key to open up the skill screen. Now this by default is set to auto mode. And what we want to do is, well, let's go back to auto and just talk about it. Auto mode means that it's going to just skill up whatever we're doing. So you'll notice right now, the skills that we're currently training, they have a plus by them. So we're training fighting, maces and flails, armor, and shields. And honestly, those are all good things. We want all of those with our character. Now, it tells you, okay, let's just look at the top, look at fighting in the upper left. Fighting is, if we move over to the right in the columns, is level 3.3. And that's the skill level. And it costs 3.4 times more than normal. It's just a value kind of conferring to you, okay, well, what's it going to cost to skill this up? And the higher that number, that means the more experience, the more expensive it's going to be to raise it up. And then to the right, we have our aptitude. And you see that we have +1 to fighting. So that makes it easier for us to train it. But the higher the level, the more the cost will go up. And if you have, like, even if you have a low level, but you have a bad aptitude, you'll see the cost. So as an example, look at throwing. Throwing's level is 0, but its cost is 1.4 to go higher, even though it's so low because I have a -2. But then unarmed combat, you see the cost is 1. It's just a direct 1-to-1 to raise that up because my aptitude is 0. But then I have, for example, axes is already 1.4, and it's only 0.7 to raise it, and that's because I have a +2 aptitude. So you can see how, generally what you want to do is you want to kind of set targets for certain skills that you want to hit, and then if that cost becomes too prohibitive, that teal number, then you say, you know what, I might want to switch to something else. And how do you switch to something else? Well, you need to go to manual mode. Otherwise, the game is just going to train whatever skills you're using, and you don't necessarily want that. In fact, you definitely don't want that. Because you don't want to, in Dungeon Crawl, spread yourself too thin. It will take too long for us to raise these skills if we're trying to train all of them at once. So we're going to want to take control of this. And what's cool about this screen is you can push the / key. You can see down in the bottom of this box, it's going to tell you, like, oh, okay, this is what I have to push key-wise in the square brackets to get this function. So we push the / and we switch to auto mode or manual mode. And here we go. Now we're in manual mode. Actually, you know what? I completely lied to you earlier. The game defaults to manual mode, I suppose. I thought it defaulted to auto. It's manual. And it tells you at the bottom, manual mode, experience is spread evenly across all activated skills. Now, if I were to go to auto mode, you see that a bunch of skills turn on, and I don't want that. So I'm going to go back to manual mode, which we started on anyway. And I'm going to then turn off fighting. I'm going to push A once. If I push A only once, then fighting will have that asterisk, which means it will be actually prioritized. And I don't want that. I'm going to turn that off again. And then I'm going to turn off armor. I'm just going to push G twice, and I'm going to push I twice to turn off shields. And now all I'm doing is training maces and flails. And this is all I want to train right now. You saw how many times I was missing some of these enemies. Maces and flails is a skill that will help us hit more, attack faster, and do more damage with our weapon. These are like, just be better with our weapon that we are starting out with, which is what we want. Now, you notice how axes and stabs are in green? That means that those are skills that are affiliated with maces and flails, and they get a little bit of experience even if I'm not training them, because just by training maces and flails, it's like I can use an axe and I know a little bit about it because I'm good with maces and flails. So they just get this auxiliary bonus, and that's fantastic. Now, if I were to, let me go back to maces and flails. Now, if you were to train axes, you'll notice that maces and flails doesn't light up right now, and that's because it's actually a higher skill level than axes. So if I got axes to a higher level, then maces and flails would show up. It only works if the skill is a lower level than the skill that you're training. Now, if you want to know what a skill does, you can push the question mark and then just select one of the skills. Push B for maces and flails, and it tells you being skilled with maces and flails will allow you to attack more quickly with all weapons, as well as increasing your accuracy and damage. And it tells you that being skilled with this increases your effectiveness with axes and staves and vice versa. So those are all linked, just like some of the slashing weapons are linked. So I'm just going to push escape, and now I am totally set, and I'm only training maces and flails. So all of my experience, which was getting divided between 4 skills, is now only going to 1. Perfect. So I'm just going to push escape and close that up. All right. Okay, so I'm going to push O to explore again, and we found another endoplasm. Now here's something you could do just for fun. I don't have a lot of stones. You could see in the upper right, I only have 4, but I can just throw a stone at this guy, and I actually hit him. I just push F, and you can push. So if you push F, the game will actually attempt to auto-target something if there's only one target and it sees it. And if there's multiple targets, it will just pick one, and you can like cycle between them. But in this case, there's only one, so I can push F to target it, and then push F to throw it again, or push Enter. And that time, I actually hit it. And now you can see that it hasn't died. Below it, there's that green bar. That's its hit points. So I can move back, and I'm just going to push S, and I want to talk to you about auto attack. So auto attack is done by pushing the tab key, and this will normally you have to direct your attack by pushing the direction you want to attack, but with tab you just attack whatever's close to you. Now this guy actually did his cold damage, so you could see in purple it says he freezes us, and then, or magenta, and then I could attack him again, and eventually we're going to kill this guy. And I just kept pushing tab. Now remember how we set at the beginning of the game the auto attack stop. If my hit points were to have dropped below 80%, I would no longer be able to push tab to auto attack. It would tell me I'm too injured to auto attack. But you can actually even hold the tab key if you're in a fight that you think is really easy, and just keep going until you get to 80% or it dies. And that's just a useful shortcut when you're just fighting through a bunch of bad enemies. But right now we're just doing things nice and slow. It's generally always the best idea, especially when you're new at the game, to just go slow. Because whenever you move too fast in this game, you make a mistake and you die. Also, whenever you get overconfident and think that you can't be killed, the game will kill you. It is just a truth that you need to watch your hubris and be accordingly cautious at all times, because the game is brutal and it's permadeath. So now I'm hurt, and if I push O to auto explore, you notice how in the bottom left it says hit points restored. Remember, because we set auto rest on explore, so I actually won't move until I'm fully healed. Now we found a normal staircase right here that you can see. It's not a trapdoor, it's just gray, meaning I can go up and down this staircase if I wish. I got a scroll, but this scroll, I actually don't know what it does. So this is because scrolls and potions are not automatically identified when you pick them up in this game. It used to be that equipment was not identified, but they changed that when they removed cursed items. So you don't know what this scroll does, and really the only way to figure it out is to read it. But we don't want to read any scrolls while there's potential enemies around. And also while we haven't fully explored the level. Now you see there's this talisman right here, and you're like, well, what is this? Push V, and you see that this is actually an item that you can use if you're a shapeshifter and you want to transform into an Arctic beast or a rhyme yak. And this is really cool, but this is not what our character is about. So we're just going to leave that there. All right, we found a quokka, and I can actually step into this enemy. And why am I doing that? You notice how in the bottom right, the text of the enemy, the color of the text, is also communicating to you how difficult it is. And if you start to see enemies with white or even lighter gray text, that means they're very, very easy. And we're just going to kind of chill it with auto attack and then start exploring again. We found ourselves a regular mace, but this is not better than our flail. And how do I know? Well, I'm just going to push X, and then I'm going to move over to flail and push V, and you'll see that this gives me more accuracy. It's +3 accuracy. That's cool. But its base damage is 8, and it has the same delay. So the base damage being 8, where ours is 10, means that this is just doing less damage than our flail. And even though there might be a little less accuracy, I want to be able to just kill things quickly, so I want more damage. All right, and we found a teleporter and a ball python, and we're just going to hit this guy. And look, he's constricted us. So you see that little pretzel knot in the upper right? That means we've been constricted by the ball python, which means we can't really move away from this guy. And some enemies can actually start to do serious damage to you as they tighten around you. So we got to kill this ball python, and we did. I walked into him. And you see in the bottom left in green, our maces and flail skill has gone up to level 3. And we're getting better, faster with our weapon. In fact, if I go to my inventory and I look at my flail, you'll see that now my current attack delay is 1.2. I believe it was 1.3 before. It might have been 1.2, but it's already better as we've raised up our level. And this is a teleport trap. And the game, by default, will not walk on that when you auto-explore. So you don't have to worry about it. You don't want to step on it because you don't want to get teleported, but this guy's throwing stones at me. Hilarious. Now, you see I'm backing up into the hallway so I could fight these kobolds and this rat one at a time. That guy actually did some pretty good damage to me, and we have reached level 2. Fantastic. What does that mean? Well, that means more hit points for us and more magic points. So sometimes when you level up, you will get stats that you can distribute. And sometimes you just get hit points and magic points. In this case, we just got hit points and magic points, but who's complaining about hit points? Now, you can either push O to auto-explore and rest, or you can just push the 5 number, not on the numpad, but the number keys that run along the top of your keyboard to rest, and you'll just rest until you get your health back. All right, so I'm just going to push O to auto-explore, and you'll notice how, while I was running around, part of auto-explore is that you will pick things up that you step on, and the auto-explorer will kind of guide you to things to pick up as part of its movement algorithm. And I went from 2 to 9 stones. Now, before, stones were actually not automatically being picked up, but once I picked up my first set of stones manually, then from then on, all stones will be picked up. Now, you can toggle that on and off if you wish, but you can also just drop stuff from your inventory. Now, I'm going to continue exploring. There's a potion there, and there's also a scale mail with this clear potion. So I'm going to push Shift 5, and I'm wearing scale mail. So scale mail is quite good. It is the direction that we want to be going, which is heavy armor, but we're looking for heavier armor. So we'll see if we can find some. That leather armor down there was not heavier, not going to do it. Leather armor is less encumbering, better if you want to be an evasion type character, cast spells more easily, but that's not what we're into. I'm just going to let this guy walk into me and keep exploring. There is a hand axe, and you'll notice if I push I have 2 potions of might. And because I started with those potions, those are automatically identified. But then I have a scroll, some other potions, I don't know what they do, and a couple of rings. I could just put on the ring of, magical power just because, and you see it gives me 9 magic points. And then there's some leather armor there. I got another potion, so I have 3 clear potions. Interesting. I got a potion of might. A potion of might, by the way, if you're curious about that, you can push Q to quaff potions. So Q is the drink potion button, and it'll bring up a list of your potions. And you see how on the bottom left it tells you to push exclamation point to toggle between either drinking or quaffing the potion and then reading it. So, or I'm sorry, that's between read scrolls and quaff potions. That's interesting. You can just push R to read scrolls. I had actually never used that functionality. What I wanted to do is talk about how to describe them, which is question mark. So generally it's question mark. Sometimes it's another key to like toggle between the different options. And I will push question mark, and Potion of Might will increase the power of our melee attacks. So this is just something we can drink to get a little boost against a very difficult enemy. We want to save those. We don't need it now. It doesn't last for a super long amount of time. But if we did want to use that, ooh, boy, we got super lucky right here. So you see my armor class is 6. And that's pretty good. But I just found this +2 cloak. And I'm going to actually push G on top of it to pick it up. And I'm going to then push Shift W to wear an item. And I'm going to go over to this cloak. And you see I'm already wearing the scale mail and the buckler. And I'm going to push, you can either use the arrow keys and just push enter and put it on. And now you see my armor class actually went from 6 all the way up to 10. And you might say, well, why did that happen? Well, that happened because I'm going to go into my inventory and by pushing I, and then I'm just going to push L on the cloak. And you can see that it changed our armor class by 3.1 because it tells me if I take this off, my armor class will decrease by 3.1. So how did I go from 6 to 10? Well, it's because the game, in terms of armor class, it does not round this decimal up. I was actually at 6.9, and so I raised up 3.1 by equipping this. Now, why is it 0.1? Well, it has a base armor rating of 1, and then it has an enchantment of 2, which pushes the armor class up to 3, and then I get a little bit of a boost from my armor skill. Now, the higher my armor skill goes, the more the benefit I will get from armor class items. And there is a cap for accessories like this, I believe. They keep changing the equations of how this works, but I get more benefit from something like my scale mail, and that does not cap as easily. But you could see again, this is 6.9, and so this is armor class rating 6, but my armor skill is giving me that little boost to rise to take this all the way up to 6.9. Now, interestingly, if I took this off, my evasion would go up, so I would be harder to hit, but I just wouldn't mitigate damage. So there's a bunch of great equations that you can find on the Dungeon Crawl wiki, which will tell you exactly how armor class functions and explain to you like how much damage you're mitigating with your armor class. Just in shorthand, the higher it is, the more incoming physical damage you are mitigating. And we can move over here. And also about that, if I look at my scale mail, the higher the base armor rating of the armor, the better overall your damage mitigation is. Actually, I thought about it, and there is some documentation within the game. So I got to this by just pushing question mark and then going over in the manual contents, because there's a built-in manual, to see attributes and stats. And you can see down here that armor class reduces, so it mitigates damage coming in from most attacks, but it provides guaranteed minimum protection against damage from melee attacks. So the way that this used to work is you would roll a die that would be like a random number between, let's just say, your minimum armor that you could block and then your armor class. And the higher your roll, the more damage you mitigated. But there was a floor that was set, which is your guaranteed damage protection or guaranteed damage reduction. And the base armor increases the guaranteed damage reduction. So the higher the base, the heavier the armor, the more guaranteed damage reduction you have, which is going to benefit us because we're going to be playing a character that wants to wear really heavy armor. There is a bat here. We're going to kill that. And I'm going to just continue exploring. Found a club. I don't want that. And we're done. We're done with the first floor of the dungeon. So now that we're done with the first floor of the dungeon, before we go any further, what I'd like to do is push R to read my scroll that I don't know what it is. And so I'm just going to read this, and it's telling me it crumbles into dust, and it's a scroll of amnesia. So this allows you to forget a spell that you have memorized. If you're a spellcaster, that you've memorized some spell levels, you've spent spell levels to memorize a spell, you can then forget that spell to gain those spell levels back to memorize other spells. That doesn't really apply to us right now, so the scroll is consumed on reading it, but now, anytime we see that scroll, it is identified so we know what it is. Now, I'm not going to blind identify these potions by quaffing them, because that could be a really bad idea. I don't mind reading the scrolls when the floor is empty, but for now, I'm going to leave those potions as is. We're going to hope that we can find an identification potion so that we can look and find out what our potions are. Now, one thing I will say is that typically there are certain potions that are more common, especially early, and potions of curing, which do a little bit of a light heal but also cure you of poison, are generally common. So those 3 clear potions I have might be that, but the game can be wild and can just give you, 3 potions of flight or something like that also, or enlightenment rather, instead, and then, that logic kind of goes out the window, but that is something you can think about. All right, so let's go down to the next floor, and, oh, interesting, there's a shop right here. So you could see if I push X and I just move over here, there's this book emporium, and then there's a scroll, I don't know what it is, and there are these decorative fountains. So a book emporium is not super important to this character, unless there's manuals on sale. But it's interesting. So I'm going to push O, and it's going to take me into this immediately. And it's going to show me all of these different books that have spells inside. Now, in this case, it is exclamation point to switch between buy and examine. So you always have to pay attention to how the keys work. Sometimes it's question mark, sometimes it's exclamation point, sometimes it's asterisk. It just depends. So I'm going to go ahead and examine like this Codex of Conductivity at the top. And it tells you, if I read this book, I would learn Forge, Lightning Spire, Maxwell's Capacitive Coupling, and Arc Jolt. Now, when I say learn them, I don't mean I would get these spells. I mean these would be added to the pool of potential spells that I know and could then memorize and then cast. These are extremely high-level spells, and if I want a description of them, I could push C, for example, on Maxwell's Capacitive Coupling. This is a level 8 air, magic, or lightning spell. This is an awesome spell, but my character can't cast it. It's way beyond me. So I'm not going to buy any of these, but it's cool that this is here. If you wanted any one of these items, in the future, you could put it on your shopping list by just, instead of pushing lowercase a, I could just push capital A, and then you'll see how it gets added to my shopping list. There's a little kind of cyan or light blue $sign, which means this has been added to my shopping list. Now, I don't want it there, so I'm just going to push capital A again to get rid of it, and then I'm going to just push escape to leave the shop. But I'm going to pick up this scroll and that scroll. 2 scrolls, they're both the same scroll, and yet I don't know what they are. Here is a kobold that sees me, so I'm just going to push S and wait for this guy to walk back into us. You can see that we got ourselves a short sword, and there's a bunch of jackals. I'm just going to walk back here. There's another ring of magical power, amusingly. And we got him. There's a robe. There's a dart slug. Dart slug is really annoying because it can shoot us for a lot of damage. So what I'm going to do is actually step diagonally back up here. You can move diagonals in this game, by the way, and it does not take any extra time. So you can walk through. And I'm going to just walk back like this and just keep pushing S. The dart slug saw me. It's just really slow. And I'm going to then move toward it so that it doesn't shoot as many darts at me, and then we kill it. And we're 55% of the way up to the next level. If I push M, you can see our maces and flails have gone up. They're 3.7. And we're just going to examine, auto explore, and we open the door, and this can happen a lot of times when you open a door and it's into a big chamber and there's enemies everywhere. Well, to make it so that they have less of a chance of just throwing stuff at me, casting spells at me, I'm just going to walk backwards and then just push S and just fight them in this little choke point here. And we just walk into them and they all die. We found another one of those scrolls, so those are plentiful. So just like that logic I explained earlier with scrolls. There are some that are more common. Those are probably identify or, hopefully teleport or something like that. But we don't know yet. We could go up to the floor above and, read them if we wanted, but we're okay for now. By the way, you always want to keep track of where there are staircases up once you go past that first floor, and you can start going deeper so that you can run away if you need to. There is an escape hatch right here. This we could use if we needed to run away. And then there is the entry that we came in down here. They are the light blue squares on the minimap. And there's this giant room here with some water, and I'm going to walk away from it. The lighter colored water is shallow water, which is easy for us to... we can walk across it, but we don't want to stand in it to fight. You see, if I stand in it, it says moving in this stuff is going to be slow. It will slow our attacks, and we don't want to fight in it. And we cannot walk into the deeper dark blue water because it's too deep. However, I'm going to walk back. We can fly over it, or if we're like a merfolk or something, we could swim through it. Now, we're fighting an adder, and you see in the bottom right, the adder's text is in yellow, meaning this is a more difficult enemy. And the reason it's more difficult is because it's hard to hit and it can poison us. And poison is brutal. So I'm going to swing, and we're just going to hope we hit it there really hard, that we could kill this before it poisons us, and we did. And now, our maces and flails went up to level 4, and we got level 3. And when we get level 3, we get to pick one of our attributes that we will raise twice. Now, for this character, we're going to be deciding to play this as a strength-based character. So I'm going to raise our strength. If I wanted to be more of a caster, I would raise intelligence. And if I was trying to be, a ranged character or a sneaky, stealthy type character, I would do dexterity. I'm going to go strength. And you'll see that my strength goes to 20. And we also got more hit points and magic points for raising a level. Now, another thing that I will tell you about is there's so many things that we have to unpack with this game, and I've tried to be simple and not throw too much on you at once. If I push Shift-A, you're going to see the innate abilities, weirdness, and mutations, and these are just the abilities that we get as our species, which is that our spellcasting is much less encumbered by armor. So it's actually easier for mountain dwarves to cast spells in heavy armor, which makes them even tankier casters, which is great. And we can use scrolls of enchantment on lesser artifacts, which means that we can actually modify artifacts and make them better, which no other species can do. And we got another scroll there. There is a blind altar right there. We'll think about that in a moment. Just going to continue exploring. And we found another scroll and auto explore. I'm just going to push tab. And tab is auto attack, like I told you. But guess what? Tab also will do auto combat even if you're not close to something. And it will attempt to just walk over and fight whatever is close. So you could push tab to move too if there's something within sight. So you got to be careful with tab because it'll take a step forward sometimes and maybe you don't want to. So it's something that you want to, use sparingly, but against enemies like that, no problem. Now you see how this adder is now the text is in gray? That's because I leveled up. And as I get stronger, the game is going to rate certain enemies as less powerful. But this enemy is still challenging, could still pose a problem to us. Oh, and we found chainmail, which is great. So chainmail, you'll see that it has a base armor rating of 8. So that's better than the base armor rating of 6. I'm going to walk over and push G to pick this up and move back here. Then our scale mail. And in fact, I'm actually going to go up to the previous floor. So a shortcut to moving around in this game is you can push Shift X to kind of like zoom out, and then you can move around and, you know, explore, and then push Enter on the square that you've targeted, and you will auto move to that spot. And just like auto explore, as long as you don't encounter an enemy or something dangerous, you'll get there. But you can also push Shift and then use the greater than and less than keys to go up or down, to find the closest up or down staircase. So if I push Shift X and then I push Shift comma, which I believe is less than, then I will target the closest up staircase, which is this escape hatch. But if I push Shift comma again, I will go to another staircase, and then I can push Enter, and you see I run all the way to the stairs, and I'm going to go up, and I'm going to go back up to Dungeon 1. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I want to put on armor, but putting on armor takes several rounds. It's a long process, so I don't like to put on armor when enemies could walk into my area and start attacking me when I have no armor on. So now we're good. And you see how my armor class is 10? If I Shift W and then put on this chainmail, my armor class goes up to 12. Now my evasion is going to go down, but my armor class goes up so I can mitigate more damage, and because the base armor rating goes up, I have a higher guaranteed damage reduction. Also on this floor, I can push R and start reading these scrolls. So this is indeed identify. Great. So I want to actually identify these potions. I like to identify potions before scrolls because potions could be so important to drink. And, ooh, we got really lucky. These are actually heal wounds. So heal wounds will not cure poison or confusion, but what they will do is heal a lot of hit points. They're a more powerful heal. They're really, really useful. And then we're going to push R, and then now you see the scrolls of identify are identified. I'm going to identify this other blue potion and its invisibility, okay? And then I'm going to read identify again, and I will identify one of these scrolls, and it's fear. Great. So the advantage of identifying a scroll is that you don't have to waste it to figure out what it is. And this is Enchant Armor. Perfect. So I can enchant any of the armor that I have, my buckler or my chainmail. I don't really want to enchant any of this, to be perfectly honest with you, but I have to use it or it will crumble and be wasted. So I'm going to use it on my chainmail. I'm not going to use it on my buckler because I'm looking to upgrade my buckler as soon as possible because I want a better shield. So I'm going to do this, and you see how now my chainmail is +1 and my armor class goes to 13 +1. I'm going to read then this scroll and its teleportation. So you see in the log it says you feel strangely unstable. It was a scroll of teleportation. So what this means is it's going to teleport me to a random square on this floor, but it's going to take a few turns. In the upper right, you'll see how below throw in blue it says tele. That's where like bonuses, buffs, debuffs, status effects like constrict, we saw that over there. That's where that will show up. And I need to just wait a few turns or move or whatever past some time for the teleport to kick in. Now, teleport can no longer teleport you to someplace dangerous. You can't teleport into a wall or someplace inescapable or something like that. But it could be the tile right next to me, or it could be all the way across the map. It's a great way to escape, but it is a bit random. So I'm actually going to just push 5 and rest until it kicks in. And then you see I got moved all the way over here on the map. And now we know what it is. Now in the upper left, you're going to see where before I just had the Potion of Might. Once I've identified consumables and evocables that I can use, they will show up here. So here's my Scroll of Fear. Here's my Potion of Invisibility. And here is my 3 potions of Heal Wounds. And this is really useful to look at all the time before you make any decisions, because it will help you remind you of like what your options are. And, you know, we have several. We could use our Fear Scroll, we could drink a Potion of Might, etc. Awesome. So everybody, I think this is a great place to end our first episode of our kind of more updated 2025 Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup Guide for Complete Beginners with our Mountain Dwarf Fighter. We're rocking and rolling. We need to continue exploring floor 2, and we'll get to that in the next episode. This is going to be a series, and I'm going to go as long as you all want to talk more about the game, because as you can see, there's a ton to explain. I haven't explained everything. I have to do that in multiple episodes to not be, just overload you with information, but it's also just better to see it in action so I can talk about all the different situations you can get into in a game. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions you'd like to ask about Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup, please do so in the comments below. And if you're interested in seeing some other characters, in the description I am putting my complete victory with a Minotaur Berserker. We have a ranged character and we have a spellcaster as well. So you could see some different play styles. Thanks again, everyone. Take care.